I buy the CD and we like listen to Unchained Melody like on repeat.
It's that tune.
It's that tune. And I think Bobby Hetfield's vocals on this are just phenomenal.
Classic.
Yeah. It's in my brain. Okay, here we go.
Can't unhear it.
This is a show about the 500 albums that Rolling Stone says are the best, and we're gonna talk about them ad nauseum. This is a show about the 500 albums that Rolling Stone says are the best, and we're gonna talk about them ad nauseum. This is a show about the 500 albums that Rolling Stone says are the best, and we're gonna talk about them ad nauseum. This is a show about the 500 albums that Rolling Stone says are the best, and we're gonna talk about them ad nauseum.
Oh, welcome to the Backwards Beats podcast. I'm Carl Carter Fansteel.
And I'm Dan Woodard.
And this week we will be trying something a little different. Not because we are not interested in our own format. In fact, I like what we've been doing quite a bit.
Yeah, me too.
Unfortunately, our friends at Rolling Stone, however, or somebody who created this compilation we'll be reviewing today, kind of screwed us.
That's for sure. Because we are about to cover, this is our episode number 12, but this is album number 489, which is the compilation album Back to Mono, parentheses, 1958 to 1969, by Phil Spector.
Our favorite.
Our favorite. We're not going to talk too much about Phil Spector on this.
If you want to hear us talk about him, you can go back 5 episodes and check out our Ronettes.
Yes. So for the record, he was extremely influential in music. Clearly has at least 3 hours and whatever, 27 minutes worth worth of music and more stuff in addition to this. But what we're going to try to do here is we're going to try to celebrate the artists on this album.
Yes.
And not spend too much time on Phil Spector, who, as we covered in the previous episode, was a spouse abuser and murderer.
Yeah, not a good person by any length.
Yep.
But producer, he certainly was influential. The fact that we have 73 songs on this compilation that is in the span of 11 years.
Yeah, there's some really good songs on this.
They were busy.
This is a box set that was released in 1991. It was 4 compact discs or 5 vinyl LPs.
Ooh.
And I don't really know why they put it together. Maybe he needed some money.
Lawyer fees.
That's a different artist, but yeah. And the interesting thing, we talked about this in the Ronettes album, is, Phil Spector died in prison after being convicted of murder. And he died in 2003. And Rolling Stone magazine started this list.
In 2003?
In 2003. And in 2003, this album was ranked number 68.
Ooh.
And I think there's 2 things that happened here, or maybe just one really, is in the Ronettes episode, we talked about how Rolling Stone sort of gave an inappropriate obituary stating that Phil Spector going to prison was a bit of a setback for him.
You know what else was a setback? The life taken by Phil Spector.
Correct. They ended up having to retcon that and redact and apologize for their insensitivity. And I wonder, not too hard, if their movement from number 68 to 489 may have also been a result of that. Or maybe they're like, oh, you know what? Let's just reshuffle the deck and you happen to go from towards the beginning.
Sure.
Yeah, towards the end.
20 years is a long time. Mm-hmm. That conversation happened though.
Yeah.
Of whether he should even make the list again.
Right.
Because of just like the political correctness of it all.
Yeah, and I would have to guess that the thinking behind keeping it on the list at all has to do with the celebration of some of these artists who you might not know.
Yeah, and when you see the company that they're in, obviously there's some big names, no spoilers here, but like, of course the Ronettes are going to be all over this thing.
The Righteous Brothers.
Precisely.
Yep.
So some of the lesser known artists on here, they're in good company. And that's, I think, what we can lean into today.
Yeah, I agree.
So in all fairness, we've put this episode off about as long as we've ever put off anything we've done so far for this podcast. Because it was strategically, how do we approach 73 songs and 16 artists?
Yep.
And we think our best way of going about this is going to be artists. We're going to go to the artists in alphabetical order.
Yep.
We're going to look at the catalog, if any, provided here. And Dan and I will talk about the highlight song for each of us, and maybe we'll agree on some. We don't know what each other are going to say.
No.
And some artists might only just have one song on here, like our first ones. And
Correct.
So we'll speak about that tune.
Yeah, so we'll talk about probably 18 songs in total.
Yeah.
And if you want to know what they all are, the fun thing about this is on Spotify, the album doesn't exist. It exists as a playlist. We'll include the playlist in the show notes if you want to find it. But you can just search in Spotify for Back to Mono. It pops right up.
Sounds good. You ready to do it?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Do it. Do it. Do it.
So Daniel, who's up first today?
We're talking about the Alley Cats.
All right.
The Alley Cats are a lesser-known doo-wop group that was kind of part of the early rock and roll scene. And they're classified by some of their tight harmonies. But they're essentially a doo-wop band. They never really reached mainstream success. But despite this, their recordings really, I guess they represent the early 60s vocal group history. Obviously, Phil Spector found something in them. And this is really the only song that you see in their discography that stands out among anything.
Okay.
Yeah. And the song is
Puddin' and Tane.
Puddin' and Tane.
T-A-I-N. That's it.
That's it.
I don't know what a tane is.
I don't know either. I tried to look up if it meant anything. It doesn't. No, I really couldn't find much on this song.
I'm
other
thankful
than it's on this
It's
album.
early in the night for us too, because the jokes would be a-flowing.
Correct.
This is no surprise coming out of this camp. You have this, incredibly familiar chord progression that 1 minor 6 4 5. Who wrote the Book of Love? Heart and Soul.
Heart and Soul.
Like everybody's favorite piano song.
Yeah, my note is Heart and Soul, typical doo-wop of the time.
Up tempo.
Yep.
Not sitting back, because there's kind of two speeds, maybe a third, you could argue, that wash through all of this genre. This one is definitely meant to shake too.
Yeah, a better version of this might be Who Wrote the Book of Love.
Yeah, that's what I had.
I would say I won't cover too many songs that feature this, but this is the first instance of the yakety sax style saxophone that's on this. And if you don't know yakety sax, it was a style of energetic saxophone playing that started with King Curtis, made much more popular by Boots Randolph when he recorded a song by that name, Yakety Sax, which is a theme song for the Benny Hill Show.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah.
And this is that really poorly intonated, blowing the bell off of your horn, staccato patterned sax playing.
Yeah. Yep.
You'll undoubtedly know what we're talking about if you just pop this song on for a sec. High energy. It's also not, it doesn't feel like it's been soaked in the wall of sound Phil Spector treatment for too long.
No, this has not been abused.
Super wet, like the reverb. It doesn't sound super, super massive. Overall, it's a pretty good recording, actually.
Yeah, I just say as a song of this style, this doo-wop style, it doesn't really stand out to me. It's fine. It's pleasing. But I think there are other doo-wop songs that I would much rather turn on.
Yeah, but we have 73 slots to fill.
We certainly do.
Anything else on this?
Not really.
All right, Alley Cats, it was nice knowing you.
Yep.
All right, next artist in line, alphabetically, is one
Ben E. King.
Yes, with his tune Spanish Harlem.
Yeah, so a little bit on Ben E. King. He was originally a member of the Drifters, who you might know for the song Under the Boardwalk. And he really made his history with the song Stand By Me, which was recorded in 1961 and really rose again when the movie Stand By Me came out in the 80s. It just popped back up.
Absolutely.
Fantastic singer. Yeah.
Yeah, this tune, this is one where the Phil Spector treatment, the wall actually really does serve it well. Because of the kind of like sparse instrumentation. It's a nice pocket groove. It has a couple of high chimey instruments that they use. Probably it could be a xylophone. It sounds more marimba to me. But like a wholesome percussive tonal part. It has some nice little high triangle stuff going on. So the space is super appreciated, and the harmonies are tastefully done as well.
Yeah, that xylophone / marimba part, I couldn't quite place which one it is. Probably because of the reverb on it, but it's a nice hook. I mean, it's a hook that...
There's no question that this song, Save the Last Dance for me would be a comp.
Yep.
And then, of course, there's no way Disney didn't rip it off for Kiss the Girl. Just a little.
Yeah. Oh, it's so funny you mentioned Kiss the Girl because there's a song from that same movie that makes it onto this.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I totally forgot about that.
Yeah. Wow. Look at you. Foreshadowing. I think Ben sounds great. My only negative critique is there's some beautiful background vocals, but then there's some low harmonies that come in to support him that I think Spector kind of screws up the mix on it. They just sound flat. Not harmonically flat, just sonically flat.
They didn't make the cut in like, okay, you're going to break through sonically here.
Yeah.
And that's a shame because there's a game we play when mixing, and I am by all means not an authority, but I do my fair share. And the whole theory is, where does it live in the mix? You can't just have data floating around because it clutters up songs.
Yep.
And so there's a good example of something that's probably mixed too low, and therefore you miss the effect. Whereas the strings in this song, at least on my monitors, are screamingly hot, as they often were in most of his recordings. These string sections, these violin sections, just come screeching in.
Yeah, and rhythmically, it's not quite a bossa beat, but it's a 1, a 2, a 3 thing, which feels nice. It floats nicely.
It's more a samba.
Yeah, and Benny sounds fantastic on this.
Yeah, great tune. I have no qualms with this song. And honestly, at the end of the day, the way it's recorded, I have no qualms with either.
Yeah, one of my favorites.
Yep. All right, so breaking into our third artist of the day.
This is Bob B. Sox and the Blue Jeans.
Now, we were just talking during a little break here. There's this kind of like incestual pool of musicianship going on.
Correct.
Where you're going to see and hear artists from one group all of a sudden featured in whole other groups. And we're trying to figure out how to navigate this when it comes to favorite songs.
Yep.
I think as long as the artist's name is part of that song's catalog, it's free game.
Yep, I agree. So Bobby Sox and the Blue Jeans is a Phil Spector created group featuring Bobby Sheen, Darlene Love, which we'll hear about her later in this episode.
Indeed.
Fanita James. And they're best known for their rousing version of Zippity Doo Dah.
Mm-hmm.
I disagree that it's rousing.
I would not choose that song with somebody else's ears.
No. So that was a song from Disney's Song of the South, which you already mentioned, which was performed initially by James Basket. I'm not sure how you say his last name.
Let's just stick with Basket.
Yeah, let's stick with Basket. I'm sure he's passed. I think that movie came out like 1946. So
okay.
Anyway, I like that original version. I understand it's actually unfortunate that Song of the South was so controversial because there's some really good music on that soundtrack. And let me ask you this.
Hit me.
Okay. Did they need to redo Splash Mountain?
No, they didn't.
It was objectively the best ride at Disney.
Or
one of the best rides.
For maintenance sakes, I think you redo it, but you keep the original course.
Yeah.
It's iconic Disney. Wasn't it in the film credits or the cinema credits on one of those Friday night TGIF sitcoms? Like Step by Step or something?
It might have been, yeah.
One of them was at a theme park, and they all just get doused with water.
Yeah. One of my favorite things about that ride is there's a lot of great rides. I'm kind of a Disney World nerd. I love going there. But if you look at like Pirates of the Caribbean or Caribbean, remember we talked about the
It's basket.
Right. the thing is, obviously that's a cool ride too, but a lot of those rides hide their mistakes or hide their crimes in darkness. Whereas Splash Mountain, everything's just out there and you can see all sides of all the stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And they do such a good job of hiding it and making it, obviously it's cartoonish and silly and fun. And obviously they take the racism out of the ride and all that sort of stuff. It was just one of my favorite things. I was just bummed when they decided I don't know what they turned it into. I haven't been since they
I remember
converted it.
reading something, one day, and everybody's like, "I can't believe they're redoing Splash Mountain or
Yeah.
taking it away and replacing it."
Yeah.
And
It's just a nostalgia thing for me.
I'm glad I got to ride it a few times.
Yeah. All right. So last thing I'll say is I don't think we're going to talk about Zippity Doodah because it's not very good. It's a slower version of what you're probably used to. Darlene Love, who's singing on this, sounds fantastic, but the song is just listen to the song of the South version.
Mix is not good either.
Yeah. So the song that you've picked off of this,
I'm going the weird way. I'm gonna go The Bells of St. Mary, which is off of the Christmas trackage.
right? That's correct. We didn't mention this. So on disc 4, it's essentially all the Phil Spector Christmas songs, and I'm positive if you listen to Christmas music, you know at least
Half
90% of them. Yeah.
Well, so that's how I know this tune. Is it would come on. Look, I'm a purist to a sense. I believe Bing Crosby is really the best Christmas music in the world. And then I move over to Michael Bublé, who I think has done a great job picking up the cone from there. But the Spector stuff in Christmas, for some reason, I think it's because it's built into my childhood.
Probably.
And I'm like, I affiliate that sound with like, all the joys of Christmas.
Yeah.
But this tune I've always had a sweet spot for. It's just going to win by default for me.
Yeah, no, it's a good song. I was going to essentially skip most of the Christmas songs on here, even though I do have one that I will mark as my favorite later on. But yeah, you've definitely heard the Ronettes version of Sleigh Ride. You've definitely heard the Ronettes version of I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus and Rudolph. And there's a lot of classic Christmas songs.
The Here Comes Santa Claus too,
Mm-hmm. Yep. I had actually put on, so I wanted to talk about, briefly about the Zippity Doodah, but there's another song that I would give honorable mention, which is Why Do Lovers Break Each Other's Heart?
Yeah.
I think it's a pretty good song. It's a typical kind of doo-woppy song. And one thing I noticed is, this compilation, features a lot of female singers. And this is certainly of the time. But essentially all they're singing about is a boy that they do love, a boy they wish they could love, who they're about to get married, and why can we not get married? That's the subject matter. End of story.
Yeah, I agree.
The gentlemen have a little bit more variation. They're all love songs, essentially. But
Yeah.
not that it's a bad thing. But there's like this 1950s sort of women needing men.
Submissiveness and
Yeah.
lusty, but in despair.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a good mood.
Well, women can get credit cards now,
Yeah.
right? So it's just different. It's very different, right? You have to go back to, that time period here and just recognize sort of the cultural
It was
zeitgeist.
what it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
But I think this we capped off Ronettes this way too. Spoiler alert. Mm-hmm. But it was like it's the same song over and over and over in a sense.
Yeah.
And you'd think if in a catalog of 13 songs, I don't care what's going on. If everybody fights to the death over pepperoni pizza, I don't want to listen to an album that's 13 pepperoni pizza songs on it either.
That's correct.
Yeah.
It's
variety.
Yeah.
So I marked Bells of St. Mary. Do you have a favorite of his collection?
I prefer Why Do Lovers Break Each Other's Heart over it. But Bells of St. Mary is a beautiful song.
Yeah, that's about. Well, you and I agree on 1 and 2 then, because
Yeah.
I also like that tune.
Yep.
All right.
Yep, alright. Yep, Yep. All right. All right. Yep. All right. Yep. Yep. All right. All right.
All right, moving on to one of my favorite band names on the entire compilation.
Yeah. The Checkmates. They are also referenced on here as Sonny Charles and the Checkmates. It's the same group.
No, I'll take the Checkmates.
That gets them at the letter C.
There it is. And they have 2 songs on this compilation. So the question is, Daniel, which way do you lean?
I have Love Is All I Have to Give.
Really?
Yeah.
I went Black Pearl,
Okay. I'll give you my reason.
and then I shall give you mine.
Sure. I think Sonny sounds awesome on Love Is All I Have to Give. It's like Otis Redding-esque. And even though the wall of sound drowns out some of his performance, this is kind of a screw you Spector to me. But that doesn't happen to midway through. It starts off and you get to hear this like really impassioned performance. And so I like that about it. I can guess why you like the other one better.
Why do you think?
Better song.
Yeah,
It's actually a better song.
it is. And I actually disagree with you, which is rare. I don't like his kind of like guttural vocal performance so much in Love Is All I Have. Instead, I think that it's clear and beautiful and crisp. I love the vocals in Black Pearl. It's so much more Motown R&B for me.
Yep.
I also don't think I have the patience for Love. I think that tune, it's like almost 5 minutes. It sonically, like the chord structure is not doing anything for me. Black Pearl kind of gets into the point after a really nice intro. Unfortunately, the production is oversaturated as always, and just too much verb. But there's not a bad song right there.
No.
It's a highlight on the album or the series of
Compilation.
albums for me.
Yeah. So this is a song, when this came on, it was pissing me off because of the performance. I was listening in the car, and it's heavy panned, which is nothing wrong with heavy panning. And I got thinking to myself, like, this was probably made for AM radio and jukeboxes that had like one speaker.
Sure.
And so I got thinking about that more, and I did a little research and came up with this off of a couple of the people who talked about this. And they said, essentially, he developed the wall of sound. Phil Spector developed the wall of sound in the early 1960s, and his goal was to create a dense, layered, and orchestral sound that would stand out on AM radios and jukeboxes.
Oh my gosh, there you go.
Okay, so we're listening to it in the wrong medium,
Yeah, agreed.
right? That's where I still think it's a bit much. I haven't decided to listen to it on a mono system or to do anything like that, but it might be worth. I mean, clearly he's panning, so he's catering to stereo. It's not like he's forgetting stereo, but I'm just curious if I heard these songs on poorer quality, lower fidelity things.
I
With
wouldn't even say poor quality, but I think the sound field
yeah,
is what we're talking about here more than anything. We could rip one of these tunes into Pro Tools, sum it into mono,
yeah,
and try it out, because I agree it's always stunning. We'll listen to a couple of the tunes in between breaks and stuff just to kind of refresh our ears, our palates, especially on something like this where the style, the genre for us, it just kind of all blends together.
Yep.
I'm speaking for me at least. And hearing it on a really nice set of studio reference monitors that we're using here that are 6 feet apart and dialed in and tuned to my room, it's distracting. I agree with you here that we may have not been listening there, but there is something about listening in my crappy Subaru speakers that I think dials it in probably a little tighter to what he was looking for.
it does. I was just excited to feel like, all right, there's got to be this, because so many people think this is a big deal.
I don't think those same people are sitting around listening on a mono system either.
No,
Like if you're listening on like a cardboard little crappy 3-inch speaker at the Silver Diner, right? That's on the table on the wall. I understand that sound. We know that sound, but Rolling Stone ain't listening to it that way,
no, they're not.
right?
not.
When it made 64 in 2003, I guarantee you, no one sat down and listened to this thing in mono.
No, they're not. And maybe they're just drinking the Kool-Aid. And I'm not saying that this wasn't a big deal and it wasn't important. It's just in 2025 on good quality, equipment, just not holding for me. A lot of it is not holding for me.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. We're going to move into The Crystals.
That's correct.
And The Crystals fill out 15 of the 73 songs on this Phil Spector compilation.
Yeah, and this is an interesting one because the Crystals are one of his premier girl groups, like the Ronettes. And they're famous for songs like He's a Rebel, which is on this list, the Do Run Run, which I think the Beach Boys did better.
Agreed.
But they really defined some early 60s pop. And there were some lineup changes that talk about some of the incestual nature. That's how you referred to it, of this. The Crystals existed as a group. But then there is a song that they recorded that didn't really go over very well with people. It was fairly...
What's that song called?
It was a little song called He Hit Me, and It Felt Like a Kiss. So here's the thing. So Phil Spector was a spouse abuser.
Yes.
So the first time I heard this while researching this album, I was like, come on, man. Are you serious? And because it's a song about girl getting smacked by her boy.
Yeah, and now you have this like Stockholm syndrome, but I deserve it and it's proof that he loves me type of mentality, right?
But then I looked into it because I'm like, okay, so some jerk had to write this thing. Then people are like, oh, this is a good idea. They had to record it and put it on an album. So
like this passed like a lot of people's desks to be released.
Yeah.
And you're putting your names on it.
Correct. So this song happened to be written by, not Phil Spector, by Jerry Coffin and Carole King.
Yeah, that was weird to hear that, man.
Carole King. So who's Carole King?
Who's Carole King? Carole King, is this song about James Taylor by chance?
Yeah, so James Taylor's muse. and a phenomenal artist in her own right.
Incredible songwriter, great performer, and will unquestionably find one of her albums on this list, right? I mean, it's going to happen. But it's odd to me that, because her style of music is also nothing like doo-wop, Motown-y stuff. I mean, she's very much acoustic singer, songwriter, folksy, into what was cool modern pop at the time.
Yeah, but she and her husband did write a lot of songs behind the scenes for people. There's a tiny story about this song, the origin of it. So they wrote this song after their live-in babysitter, a young gal by the name of Eva Boyd, returned from a weekend away with her boyfriend covered in bruises. The boyfriend seemed to have spent the entire weekend, hitting her. But when she was questioned about it, the girl didn't even bat an eyelid. He hit her because he loved her. And that's the story of the song. And the story in this song is he found out that I was untrue and he hit me and it felt like a kiss because he wouldn't have hit me if he didn't love me. It's a horrible
situation.
Right. So later on, Carole King in a radio interview said that she was sorry that she ever had anything to do with this song. She herself was a survivor of domestic abuse, not from Gary Coffin, but and then, this is just an awful song.
The fact that the song, so they don't even write it as like a PSA. It's not tongue in cheek. There's no moral to this story. So they're simply capturing a moment that happened to someone in real life, recycling it as a song, passing it off to Spector of all people and the Crystals, because he was controlling them like puppet, right? Like,
yeah,
how did this get through, guys?
I don't know. I read this quote. I didn't look up who Dave Thompson is, but the quote is, "It's a brutal song, and any attempt to justify such violence must be, as any attempt to justify some violence must be. Spector's arrangement only amplifies its savagery by framing Barbara Allison's lone vocal amid a sea of caustic strings, and I would agree.
Yep.
The song sounds like crap.
Yep.
It feels like funeral drums, while the backing vocals almost trilled, in their own belief that the boy had done nothing wrong.
Oh gosh.
Right? It's crazy. And Spector shows no sign of appreciating any of this, nor did he feel any need to. The song is not preaching, it's just documenting.
And that's the problem.
Yep.
And I put this partially on Carol. It's like you could have done. I understand drawing influence from your babysitter situation and then writing about it. Mm-hmm. But this isn't National Geographic. Like, our job's not to watch the elk get eaten by the tiger here. Yeah. Like, it's just do something with this information.
Yeah.
Rather than sell it for money.
Right. So anyway, that's definitely not my favorite song at all, but I thought it was worth telling the story of it.
Sure. It's pretty yucky.
Is there a song that stood out to you by the Crystals? There are a lot of good songs on here that they do. But
yeah, I'll be frank with you. It does get jumbled. Now, mind you, they do every single one of your like checklist doo-wops or 50 styles on here. They have everything. They have the ballad. Mm-hmm. They have the double time upbeat. They have every chord progression you've ever heard in this style. If you were like to do the generic AI poll,
yeah.
For me, I like He's a Rebel. I don't really love like the leader of the pack storytelling feel.
This is discount leader of the pack.
Precisely. But I like the song.
Yeah.
And I like the way the vocals work in it. They start to do some stuff that is not of the era. There's some kind of like more spoken rhythmic-y stuff going on. Mm-hmm. There's really good hits. One of the things that falls flat for me in a lot of these Spector productions is they're so saturated with instruments and reverb, there's no space.
No.
So anytime you get some big hits with space, mm-hmm. and some dynamic, it feels refreshing to me.
Yeah.
So that's where I would lean, I think.
Yeah, and that's why I actually picked There's No Other Like My Baby, because it starts off with chord, solo vocal.
Oh, great.
Chord, solo vocal with Barbara Allison sounding fantastic in that. So
yeah, her vocal performance in that's very good.
Yeah, so that's why I picked that as my favorite. Two other honorable mentions in here.
Yeah.
We mentioned the Do Run Run, which Beach Boys performed later. And Then He Kissed Me, which has been covered by some interesting folks. It was covered in 1978 by the band Kiss, retitled And Then She Kissed Me. Mm-hmm. And I probably got that album in 1978. So little 6-year-old was listening to that. And there's an important reason why I'm bringing this up. It's not that it's the best cover. Who knows? Maybe Gary Glitter's cover is a better cover.
Ooh.
Speaking of another horrible human being.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so the Kiss cover. Let's get back to
that. Was off the album Love Gun.
Love Gun, yes. Yes, Kiss's song album about a penis. But anyway, the reason that song sticks out to me, and I actually think Kiss does it better than they do. But the reason I probably think that is because I grew up with it.
Yeah.
And around that same time, when I was like 6 years old, the movie Grease came out.
Yeah, we've heard of it.
And that was a big deal. We actually had Greaser Day at school.
Sure.
We're like 6, 7 years old. And we show up and we grease our hair back like the T-Birds. And we had our candy cigarettes rolled up in our sleeves.
Did they let you put a pack of smokes in your sleeve, man?
Yeah. I mean, when I was in high school, kids could smoke.
Yeah.
Right? We had a smoking section.
It's amazing.
Not by the time I was old enough to technically smoke that it ended like with my class, but all the classes before could do that. And so I'm sitting here smitten by Olivia Newton-John from Grease, like huge crush on her. And I hear, And Then She Kissed Me, Kiss's version of it. And I'm just thinking of like all of that. So to me, that ends up becoming my de facto favorite, but not their version, just because I grew up with that song.
It hits you in the feels.
Hits me in the feels. But the other thing that we just talked about is the song Heartbreaker.
Yep. Pat Benatar.
Pat Benatar literally rips off a segment of this song.
And I mean, not even subtly.
Right.
I like this one better than Pat Benatar's.
I can go both ways. That one has some nostalgia feels for me too. But
I can't unhear Costanza's boss and Seinfeld singing it.
Yeah, that's a generational thing.
It's so
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a meme to me.
Yeah, but really, the Crystals, as you mentioned, there's 15 songs on here you can go to, including some pretty awesome.
Four different Christmas songs.
Yeah,
But they own a fifth of this catalog.
correct.
All right, moving on.
Moving on.
You know that we've been moving on. Bitch, you know that we've been moving on.
All right, so 2 tracks on this compilation belong to the artist Curtis Lee.
Yeah, and he's a rock and roll singer remembered for a song called Pretty Little Angel Eyes, which is one of the 2 songs.
Indeed. And he's kind of got like a post-Elvis thing going on, it seems.
Yeah, and he had a bit of a teen idol thing going for a bit as well.
He's a handsome dude.
Yeah.
I saw his picture on the Spotify for him.
Yep.
So you have Pretty Little Angel Eyes, and then the other tune on here is Under the Moon of Love, right? Mm-hmm. Where does your heart reside?
Pretty Little Angel Eyes, full stop, for 2 reasons.
I'm going to jump on the train and say, agree. I got 2 reasons too.
Yep. 1, very little wall of sound.
It's the significantly better produced song of the 2.
Yeah. And the other thing for me is it also reminds me very much of Sha Na Na, which they did have a variety show that was, I don't know if it was before my time, but I watched it on TV. And I thought Bowser for Sha Na Na was awesome. And then going back to Grease, Sha Na Na was in the movie Grease. And this song also has a little bit of reminiscence of We Go Together from that soundtrack as
like
well. So I'm all into that. So
Yeah, I like the tempo here. There's a lot of fun musical ideas going on, really cool vocal layers, and balance and production. Not something we've talked about a lot today. I've been pretty much complaining about reverb and kind of clumping of instruments. Here, you really can hear everything beautifully. Everybody has their spot in their place. Pretty Little Angel Eyes is a top 5 song on the entire compilation for me.
yeah, I would agree. Under the Moon of Love is a good song, and I think Curtis sounds good. He's got a little bit of grit in his voice. You don't hear a lot of grit.
Yeah, but I mean, when you can hear him,
Correct.
that's the problem. Is he's a distinct voice. He's obviously influenced by the artists of his time, and he's singing emotionally, and he's using like this really nice it's kind of like high tenor range.
Yep.
And he can really project there. It doesn't cut through the mix,
No.
and it's not a good listen.
Pretty Little Angel Eyes.
There it is.
That wins it for me.
All right, with 14, essentially, it's either her singing or her singing over another artist who's on this compilation. You have Darlene Love.
Yeah, so she sings on her own, as you said, and Bobby Socks. And technically, she's also buried in a Crystal song.
Yeah, she's one of those folks who's getting kind of you when you're running a studio, you have your session musicians and you call on them repeatedly. It doesn't matter the style. When you know they can get it done, she's heavily featured.
Yeah. So, what's your favorite on this one?
My gut goes to Marshmallow World every time because it's how I know it and how I hear it.
Yeah.
It's not even what I consider a good Christmas song, but it's so damn catchy.
It is. It's just there are other versions of that song that I prefer. So.
I like her on it, man.
She's good. She's good.
I like her on it, and it's one of the few places that this wall of sound style really fits.
It does. It does. So I actually have a 3-way tie with one eking out the rest.
Okay.
The one that ekes it out is Christmas, Baby Please Come Home.
Yeah.
That song, I mainline Christmas music from Thanksgiving till whatever the last Christmas celebration we have as a family. And this song has been played so many times, and so it's just ingrained in me. And hey, U2 does okay with their version of it too.
Oh, that's right. You two did one.
Yeah.
Yeah. The for those who don't live in the Maryland region, we have a radio station that the day after Thanksgiving only plays Christmas music nonstop through the new year. 97.1.
Yep. Now I have some complaints because they keep whittling down the variety of Christmas songs.
Yeah,
So I don't need to hear Wonderful Christmas Time 36 times in a 4-hour period.
Literally the song I was going to say, which I love the tune.
I do too, but
I'll tell you the one I really, really don't need to hear more than once a day if I'm fully spirited is I only need to hear So This Is Christmas. John Lennon, War Is Over.
you know what's crazy? I used to love that song with every ounce of my heart, but because
It played
of this,
crap out of it.
yeah.
Now, the one I will never tire of, no matter how much they play it.
Christmas Shoes.
No. Last Christmas.
Which version?
George Michael. Merry Christmas.
It makes me a little squirmy. I do. It's a really good song. Objectively
It's so
good song.
sick, dude. I hear those synths coming and I'm so happy.
Yeah. Who's the girl who sings it? Is it Carrie Underwood?
I wouldn't be surprised if Kelly Clarkson or one of them.
Yeah, I can't remember.
It's one of the live TV lady, like the
Yeah.
winners of a game show.
Yeah, I prefer that version because I get a little bit squirmy with the.
No. Give me that earring any day of the week, bro.
So,
All right, so Dan's into his 3-way here. So you got Christmas.
who does the song? It's not gay if it's in a 3-way.
That would be Lonely Island.
That's right.
With Lady Gaga.
Correct. All right. So the non-Christmas songs that I prefer on this is Today I Met the Boy I'm Gonna Marry. I think that Darlene's vocals sound fantastic, and she's out in front.
Yeah, you get the Spector production, but it's light, and she's really has a great vocal performance. It's crisp as all get out.
Yeah, and there's a piano hook in that. Not in this one. Sorry, and my other one is Wait Till Bobby Gets Home, and it starts off with a piano hook, and I like that piano hook. And Phil Spector just doesn't get in the way, so it really allows for Darlene to shine. So those two songs, honorable mention for me. But
She's a real talent, and I could see why she has such a presence
yeah,
in here.
Darlene Love. So who do we have now? We have Mr. Gene Pitney.
With one whole song.
That's correct.
And the song is called Every Breath I Take.
It doesn't not sound like the Police.
No, not at all. Which I do believe I mumbled under my breath earlier. And it's an interesting tune. You have a unique vocal style. Mm-hmm. A good singer, but one that kind of you either like him or you don't.
Yeah, I think he's an acquired taste. He's definitely a good singer.
He's expressive.
Yep.
His falsetto is incredible. His vibrato's good.
Yeah, his vibrato is somewhere between vibrato and tremolo.
It is. He kind of has an entire pedal board's worth of tricks up his sleeve.
Yeah, and he's known for his dramatic vocal style, and he had other hits such as The Town Without Pity and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. And he also collaborated with Burt Bacharach and Hal David, so he, as you said, before we came back, he kept good company.
Yeah, the production here is also pretty suiting. It doesn't get in the way of his vocal performance as much.
It doesn't, and I mean the orchestra kind of gets crazy. The timpanis start to take over, but not while Gene's singing, and it makes me wonder. When I listen to these, I feel like the orchestra doesn't step on the boys as much as it steps on the girls. Is that a conspiracy, or am I just oversensitive due to Phil Spector being a bit of an asshole?
Yeah, no, I think it's a hot take. I think it's a good one. If you were to compare the vocal range of Gene and Darlene, damn near the same.
Yeah, he's like a tenor, high tenor, and she's more of an alto.
Yeah, and we're not asking on any of these songs these girls to like super belt. No one's showing off at the national anthem here. Though it seems like anytime we talk about singers getting buried in the mix, why is it always the girl?
I don't know. I mean, there could be some frequency stuff. It could be instrumentation choice, but I think it's volume and tons of reverb. I don't know what it is, but it's...
I think it might be a trust issue. I think that someone thinks the males are going to get through and cut through. Or
do you think the men are talking here?
Oh, the men might be talking.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's just an observation, it may not be completely accurate, but that was my observation going through this. Is I rarely had a hard time. There were some songs where the guys were drowned out for sure, not 100%, but
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised because his view on females was not great.
no,
Anything else on this tune?
no, thank you.
Before we take a quick break, let's knock out one more here. Ike and Tina Turner. Though if you ask me, Tina Turner and some guy.
And some guy. Yeah, we'll probably talk about this duo later. We'll definitely talk about Tina Turner. We'll have to.
She'll end up on the 500, right?
Yep. Yeah, so Ike, another piece of shit who gets to join Phil Spector. But Tina Turner, right? I mean, they're a legendary duo. They're known for, River Deep, Mountain High, and this Phil Spector stuff. It was a commercial disappointment.
I am not surprised.
And what drives me crazy, given what we just talked about, and I didn't tee it up for this, but we happened to
This
tee
is
it
how
up.
it works, yeah.
How it worked. There are 4 Ike and Tina songs on this list, and to me, there's essentially only one where I can hear Tina Turner sing properly.
And even that
Yeah,
doesn't give enough respect.
it doesn't. And so I had to pick the song that I could hear her the most. Not necessarily the song I think might be the best song, because I'd rather hear her sing than what's probably a better song, because I'd rather hear her sing than whatever's happening with this nonsense.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll just go out ahead of all of it and say I'm familiar with her music outside of here, and I would not choose any of these 4 productions
Correct.
to represent my like for her. But if I have to choose from the list of 4 here, River Deep is where I go.
River Deep, Mountain High. Yeah, I mean, probably I would guess it's because you're most familiar with it.
Yes, but also it's the least egregious production of the 4.
I feel like A Love Like Yours, because actually my notes are Wall of Sound is the least obnoxious on this one.
Fair enough.
So I get to hear more of her vocals. I think River Deep, Mountain High is a better song.
Yeah, me too. I might be biased there just because I know it.
Yeah.
And, if you're not hip to Tina Turner and you're listening to this, do yourself the massive favor of just jumping down that hole for one day on Spotify or whatever listening service that you want to play on. You will be brought to tears by her performance. And you don't even have to hear the story or the words being said. It's the way she sings, the weight she puts into her notes. Nothing is left on the table ever, ever, ever.
Every song.
It's just, there's nothing like it. It's like,
No.
it's just watching someone fully sprint into a wall repeatedly. It's really, really wild.
That's a great analogy. I don't know, I'd say it's sprint to a wall, but yes, it's definitely full on. She leaves everything out there.
And
Every time.
even when she's a little flat or sharp, it doesn't matter. It's the such soul singing.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying she is constantly, but they just didn't, with the tools for fixing that stuff, and the time to record entire orchestral sections because your singer messed up,
Right.
don't exist. So you eat your take.
Yep.
And man, she's just so powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. She's fantastic. And multi-decades of great music.
I honestly don't think there's another artist anywhere close to her on this entire list.
I agree.
I mean, that's a bold statement, but
Yeah.
it's really, really that.
Yeah. I have a song I like more than anything on this album.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah, she's top notch. Unfortunately, not well represented on this pile of noise that's on this compilation.
Yep. You deserve more respect, Tina. We miss you.
Yep.
With that, I think we'll take a quick break.
Let's do it.
Howdy, folks. Come on down to Alabama Bill's for Alabama Bill's legendary Alabama Hot Pockets. These Hot Pockets ain't something you enjoy alone. These are thick, steamy, and packed to the brim with flavor. Perfect for sharing with a close friend or even someone you just met if y'all are feeling adventurous. Every Alabama Hot Pocket is bursting with slow-cooked meats, rich, chunky sauces, and a heat that lingers. We're talking deep, savory satisfaction in every bite. Yes. But be warned, Once you crack open one, things is gonna get real messy, real fast. And that's just part of the experience. Now, I know some of y'all might be nervous about trying an Alabama Hot Pocket for the first time. But let me tell you, my girls make them legendary. You just gotta come on down, get comfortable, and let the flavors take over. Cause this ain't some quick, clean drive-through snack. This is a commitment. It's a journey and a full-body experience. So, if you're craving a new treat, swing by Alabama Bill's and grab yourself a steaming, stuffed Hot Pocket today. And now, for our Backwards Beats listeners, use promo code BackwardsBeats for 10% off your first order. Alabama Bill's Alabama Hot Pockets. Empty yourself out and fill yourself up.
Well, I'll tell you, next time I'm in the ice cream department of my grocery store, I'll be running the other way.
Well, who knew you could use it as a lubricant as well?
Man, and it's not good for the transmission of your car, folks.
Definitely not.
Coming back in so strong to this list, the Modern Funk Quartet with one whole song.
Minor correction. It's the Minor Folk Quartet, not Funk Quartet.
Oh, man. I said it so confidently, and I'm not going to edit that. Well, there's nothing funky about this. I was also being facetious, if you couldn't tell.
This is the anti-funk.
This song. It sounds like Phil Spector.
It does. I wrote down a Discount Beach Boys song.
It literally has the I wish they all could be California.
Except
cadence.
doesn't sound like the amazing. And Phil Spector did that song.
Well, yeah, I'll give respect when it's due.
Yeah.
Just not here. Because,
Yeah, when we get to Pet Sounds.
Oh, yeah. I'm a happy boy then. Because it worked.
Yep.
And it was, this sounds like you picked up like the carousel at the mall and just threw it down a hill.
Is that because the constant like wind chimes and xylophones and
Any time you can hit something metal, just put it in this song. It lives there rent free.
yeah.
There's nothing particularly impressive about the singers when you can hear them.
Yeah. So here's an example of where the boys
Are suddenly drowned
are
out.
suddenly drowned out. And I should correct, I had to correct myself here. If we get to Pet Sounds, Phil Spector did not have anything to do with Pet Sounds. That's probably why it sounds good.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know why I so badly thought that
he did produce some Beach Boys.
Yeah.
I'm 99% positive, but I thought he did Pet Sounds. He did not. I had to. So
I wouldn't
fact
be
check.
surprised if like Brian Wilson hand produced Pet Sounds.
He did.
Yeah.
He's the producer.
Wonderful. That's how it should be.
Yeah.
I got nothing to say about this.
Yeah.
Done.
Dun, 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 dun. We are done.
Okay, another one-off on the album is the Paris Sisters.
Yeah, they're a soft voice trio, best remembered for "I Love How You Love Me" from 1961.
And we don't really have a choice besides that because it's the only song that they have contributed on this compilation.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on this song?
I think it's awfully bold in the first 4 seconds of the song to offer me vocals that go flat.
They do. But the breathiness of her voice.
I like her approach.
Yeah.
And as I will defend my place by saying, I acknowledge I can't sing as well as her. And they didn't have the tools that we did. But I mean,
She has a pretty voice.
she does. It's controlled. There's not tons of vibrato. It's like very kind of like swelling and pure. And yeah, and that breathy note you were talking about.
Yeah. And what it triggered for me is a memory of the singer Julie Cruz, who sings, I don't know what else she's known for, but she's featured heavily on the TV show, the Twin Peaks soundtrack. Specifically, it made me think of the Nightingale, not even close to the same song, but vocal timbre and the whisperness is, and I didn't even compare this until just a minute ago. I wrote the notes down and I never went to re-listen. But I still stand by the similarity in vocal tone, even though I like the Julie Cruz song better. This song gets weird because, in my opinion, because it does the spoken word thing.
Yeah. And you don't see a ton of that at the time.
Right.
And so there's one outlier for me. What sticks out in this song that I consider a plus, she sings some very interesting melodies they sound like guitar licks. They're patterns that I would play live at a show if I'm improvising. These kind of neat walks in series. And so you got to wonder, which musician was she talking to who helped her get out of the vocalist box and play a new melody or sing it? Or is she brilliant and coming up with this stuff on her own? Because that was, whatever it is, listen to the lick coming out of the first verse that she sings. It's awesome. And you don't really hear anything like that anywhere else in this time period.
Yeah, and for the most part, you get to hear her voice. She's not drowned out.
Yeah, the production's not egregious. It's a pleasant enough song. I just can't help but pick apart that first few seconds.
Well, because she's heavily featured.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here we have Ray Peterson with Corinne Karina.
Yeah, he's actually best known for a song called Tell Laura I Love Her. It's a classic teen tragedy song that captures the melodramatic side of early rock and roll.
Oh, that's him.
Yeah.
I know that song.
Yeah.
Okay. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. Better song than this song.
Yeah, I like this song though.
I do too. I've heard the song 1,000 times.
This.
Oh, by the way, the song is.
Huh?
I don't think we
I
said.
said.
Oh, did you say Karina? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
This groove, it's kind of the Save the Last Dance for me prototype. Yeah. If you were to push up the songs, I like him because he's pulling from obviously some of that little like Elvis-y dive vocal.
Yeah.
And putting it over what sounds like a Frankie Valli tune.
Yeah, and the tremolo guitar fits very nicely. It's kind of Crimson and Clover again.
Totally. And, then you get this really, really kind of bold background chorus. And that's where they get the Spector treatment, super droney. But it kind of works here.
Yeah, they don't get in the way.
Yeah. This is a good example of balanced reverb with, and I'm going to give the arrangement, though, a lot of the credit here. Mm-hmm. The drums are beyond consistent to the point where we're making fun of them and calling them like a metronome on 2 and 4.
Well, it's not the drums that are, I mean, yes, they're consistent. They're also dialed way back in the mix. It's not like somebody hitting them with baseball bats.
Yeah, but someone's hitting that wood block with a baseball bat.
Yeah, it's like, it's really good to practice. I think we mentioned... Oh, maybe mention in a future episode. Who knows? We talked about guitar players playing with a metronome.
Yep.
Or we will. I can't remember now because we're out of order. But so a good technique for practicing with a metronome. A lot of times people will have it play a quarter note, so you play on every beat.
So 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4.
But it's also good to have it not play on every beat, and you fill in the blanks to see how well you do with drifting off the beat. So sometimes it'll be good to have it just hit beat 1.
Yep. Or every other beat.
Or beat 2 and 4. And this just sounds like...
Or if you're white, 1 and 3.
Or 1 and 3. Yep. In this case, this wood block sounds like a metronome on 2 and 4. It's just, it's a little distracting.
It's there.
Yep.
I would really love to hear more bass in this tune because you can hear the attack of it. They're playing upright bass, but man, that would feel very full to me if we could just get a little more of that tonality.
Yeah,
moving part.
Yeah, I was almost going to say like, what's 10 times more than 0? But there is some bass.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not what you want out of it.
Yeah, but it's a good song. I like this song.
I find the song very enjoyable.
Yeah,
I'm so happy to say we finally have made it to the Righteous Brothers segment of this. Was surprised to see that they only fill out 5 tunes.
Yeah, they kind of transcend this. I'm actually surprised that they are on here at all.
I'm not, because if you're going to do a Spector Works, I mean, you have to hang the hat for a couple of these, especially the song that I assume you and I will unanimously vote in as our
There's only
top
one
choice.
correct song.
That's right.
IMO.
To spoil that for us, though.
Well, hold on. So a little bit of background for those who may not know, right? It's a duo of Bill Medley and Bobby Hatfield. And they really became legends with one of the songs on this, which I don't think is going to be the one we both agree on, which is You Lost That Love and Feeling.
Yes.
Fantastic song. Love that song. It's considered,
Never seen Top Gun?
Yeah, and they say it's the most played song in radio history.
Really?
It could be. Who knows?
Who am I to fight internet facts?
Yeah, who knows? I would have thought I Will Always Love You by
Whitney Houston?
Whitney Houston, because when that thing came out, that was...
Oh, you couldn't escape it.
No.
Oh, man.
Awesome performance, but...
Indeed.
But they had a couple other songs on here. So what are you calling your number one?
I'm actually going to relinquish this to my good friend, Ralph Michael Rillen.
Okay.
Musician out of Annapolis, Maryland, songwriter, drummer. And he has some perspective on what I think is my favorite song.
Carl, looking at the Phil Spector compilation album, there is one song on there that's a classic that means something special to me, and that would be Unchained Melody. First of all, when that song came out, it was so mesmerizing with that big wall of sound that Phil Spector had devised. Along with that, I was in my first teen dance, 7th grade, first year of middle school, as they call it today, junior high school in my day. And I got to dance to that song with the girl that I had a crush on. So not only did the wall of sound grab me and the beautiful melody of that song, but getting to dance with this cute little girl that I had a crush on.
Wow. So Ralph here, he has a couple years on me. And, I've already sort of alluded about how old I am since I listened to Kiss albums in the 70s. And Unchained Melody is special to me, but for similar reasons, actually. So Unchained Melody I had heard growing up, but it made a massive resurgence in 1990 with the movie Ghost.
Oh, that's right.
And it was nonstop. And that came out at the same time I started dating somebody who had been like a really good friend in high school. So I graduated in 1990. And by the way, we had the best, chant for our class.
What was it?
Wine me, dine me, 69 me. We're the class of 1990.
Oh, my God.
There we go.
We didn't even have a chant.
We had a chant. So it's like Spirit Week or whatever. And all the classes were saying some crap. And then I was fortunate, but we're lucky enough. So my best friend growing up, did you used to visit other schools?
Oh, yeah. I mean, pretty much halfway through middle school, my entire identity and friend group was running out of 2 or 3 other schools.
But what I mean is, did you actually go to school with a friend?
Like to their classes?
Yes.
No, I would go skip school with them, or I would go to all their dances. That was fun.
It was the kind of a thing we did back in the 80s. I went to my friend's school in another town.
And just drop in on their biology class?
Drop in, and I took pre-calculus. I wasn't even taking pre-calculus at the time. By the way, I got the best score on the test.
Let's go.
There we go. Didn't even know what calculus was, but I was helping him study at lunch. But anyway, so dear friend of mine had a dear friend of his had come, and sadly, this person has passed away. But and so he was this really, my friend's friend was this really sweet but super sarcastic, just nonstop comedian. He was just cracking jokes all the time. So he is the one who introduced us to that chant, Wine me, dine me, 69 to me. We're the class of 1990. And we were proud to say that in front of our teachers. So that was awesome. But anyway, I digress. Unchained Melody, 1990. I started dating at the time, certainly not anymore, but at the time, super serious relationship with, this girl I've been friends with for years. And we go see Ghost together because I probably wouldn't have done it properly if it wasn't for a girl.
Yep.
And I buy the CD and we listen to Unchained Melody on repeat.
It's that tune.
It's that tune. And I think Bobby Hetfield's vocals on this are just phenomenal.
Classic.
Yeah.
There is nothing I can add to this conversation that will be worthy of how influential this song still remains. I mean, I work heavily in the wedding industry now.
Right.
And I mean, it pops up all the time.
Yeah. I mean, just thinking about the fact that, obviously it was a important song in that movie, and that movie was a big deal at the time.
Take the movie away though. maybe the notoriety isn't there as much, but
Right.
it doesn't change how great this tune is.
No, song is awesome.
Yeah. Props to the Righteous Brothers. We will most likely speak about them in the future on this list if we're lucky.
Yeah, I would guess we would.
I would celebrate it. Yeah. Anything else?
No.
All right. 20 songs? Wow, 20. The Ronettes definitely have filled up this list pretty heavily. As we alluded to earlier, we reviewed the Ronettes album not so long ago. And so if you haven't caught that episode, we deep dive more on Veronica, the other ladies. Frankly, that's how it goes. Spector quite a bit. So, and it's kind of painted a hue for us over this experience because we're pretty familiar with their catalog at this point.
Yeah, well, they only have one album.
That's right.
And obviously several singles. So a lot of the songs on this list we already talked about.
Yep.
So we won't talk about, I don't think, any of those songs because
No.
we already did an episode on it.
Indeed. Where are you going for your front runner here?
I'm going for A Woman in Love, parentheses, with you.
Of course. And reasons?
I get to hear Ronnie be Ronnie. She sounds fantastic. Her vibrato's pretty intense. Occasionally gets a little out of control, but mostly it's there. I think she sounds fantastic. And with the exception of the very end where the wall of sound decides to come in and like take a complete crap on her. But for the rest of most of the song, he holds his wad.
Yeah, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty good song.
Yeah.
Same album, or the same release, which unfortunately is attributed to him. It's off of the Phil Spector collection, as it's called.
Yep.
I enjoy the song Paradise.
It's a good song. I agree. Yeah.
And it's in a cluster of good songs. It's kind of like they were having a really good moment. The production does not annoy me at all. It's some of the better Spector I've heard. And her as a feature, her vocal performance in that song, and the storytelling and the control is awesome. Yeah, it's the same old content, but I really, really like the way it's put out on the platter for us.
Yeah, it's my runner-up.
Oh, very
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
All right, so we're still kind of in the same lane.
Yeah, we should try to disagree more.
I definitely disagreed with you earlier,
You did.
but it's tough. A lot of these tunes, especially for the ones that are only at 2 off or 3 off,
Yeah.
the numbers are against us.
Yep.
But no, here with our beloved Veronica, I'll stick with Paradise.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Do it. Do it. Do it.
All right, getting down to the last couple of artists here. The Soul Song by the Teddy Bears.
The Teddy Bears. To know him is to love him. And actually, Phil Spector's on this song
Like how so?
singing.
Singing? That must be that vocal timbre I don't like.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a shame because the lead female singer is just fantastic.
Yeah, this was a big song in 1958. And the song's title was inspired by words on Spector's father's gravestone, showing his early penchant for deeply personal songwriting.
It said, Phil,
Yeah.
I left none of it to you.
Yeah, this song, I'd heard this song before. It's not as popular as like Karina or things like that, but I definitely had heard this song before. But I hadn't noticed how weird it gets.
How so?
Well, it starts off very basic as far as a pop song. It's a 1-5-6-4,
Yeah.
right, kind of thing in the key of D. And so that's pretty standard of this time. But then all of a sudden we're sitting here, we're in the key of D, everything's going perfectly fine. And then we just do a sudden abrupt key change, a modulation to the key of F
This is for the bridge.
for the bridge.
Yeah.
And then with no regard for our feelings or anything, and she's humping on the melody, to let you know we are in a new place.
Yeah, they didn't play it safe on this modulation at all. It was like, no, we're owning this.
Yeah, I think you said Radiohead. And
Well,
sure.
once they get back to the A, it's weird. Yeah.
Yeah. So we go to A. I'm sorry, we go to the key of F. So F is not in the key of D. We go to C, we go to B flat. We're all sitting there happily in the key of F, and then we get an A chord, which is back in the key of D.
And she's arguably singing as strong as she possibly has been throughout the whole song at this point, owning it. Killer vibrato, well placed in the mix. Cheers to that. But not a common progression at all.
No, and when we hit that A, it does feel like we're gonna return to what we're used to, but we don't.
No. I agree with you. I will say though, it's highly listenable. Like I for the person out there who knows nothing about music theory, and this would not bug them, it's not jarringly so different. Does that make sense? Like, it's a very pleasant listen through and through.
I feel like it adds to some desperation in the song.
You get emotion that you would never, ever, ever pull out, especially when we've already said it several times. All these songs are about the same two things, right?
Yeah. Because in this thing, so we loop around that progression a little bit more. There's a couple variations, but eventually, so we're in the key of F. We go to C, B flat, and A, and then we repeat, and we get to this point where we do what they call, you mentioned, a circle of fifths. So we get shocked again by an F chord out of nowhere. She sings this chromatic note, which basically makes the chord like a G minor.
Yeah.
She hits that for a second. Then we go to D minor. Remember, we're starting in the key of
D major.
D major. D minor's not a chord in the key of F.
And it's incredibly challenging to get there.
Right.
In a way that makes sense.
And then another chromatic note where she plays, basically the chord is an E dominant chord, an E7 chord, which is going to take you nicely to an A chord because E is the dominant chord of A.
And that 5 chord always wants to go back to the 1.
Go back to 1. And the A is the dominant chord of D, which takes you beautifully right back into your regular chord progression that we've been hearing all along. Brings you right back home. It's really nice.
It's almost like a subdominant situation, but they missed it by a whole step.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's fascinating. I for any of you grad students out there, go do a project on this. Dan's already got the framework for you.
Yeah. I didn't look at this. I was going to try to pull up the lyrics on this, but when we get to this point where I say it's desperation, she starts asking why questions in the lyrics,
Which is engaging to the listener, which is
yeah,
nice.
and I think that fits again the storytelling, because the why, when I hit that F, it's why. Why is the right question to ask when that F chord comes in?
Yeah.
Because it's a surprise.
Favorite song on the album?
No, but most harmonically interesting song on the album for me.
I'll give it that for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Anything else on this one?
No thanks.
So the band, The Treasures, I'm assuming the band. Plural.
Yeah, they're a studio project, and this is our penultimate artist. We're almost done.
Oh my gosh. We're almost done.
Yeah, so The Treasures, they're a studio project that recorded this little cover of the song Hold Me Tight, originally performed by the Beatles.
Oh.
Yeah, so this is off of the Beatles album With the Beatles. This sounds absolutely nothing like that
I was
song.
going to say, like, will never be a guy who claims to even be like a good Beatles fan. I have friends who are very, 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 very good Beatles fans. This sounds like nothing in their catalog.
Yeah, I knew the song title. I heard the song, did not register. I did a little bit of research. They said it's a cover. I'm like, I have heard no Beatles songs that sound like this. I played the Beatles songs, don't recognize it. I finally pulled up the lyrics side by side. Yes, it's the same. Yes.
Just entirely different interpretation.
Yeah.
I mean, the production on this is just awful.
My notes are, it sounds like the band is in an airplane hangar.
It sounds like you're listening to this song through a seashell.
Yeah. Yeah. A airplane hanger with a microphone at the other end of the hanger.
Except for the snare drum.
No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Badop. Like,
Yeah. Which just sounds literally like you yelled badop into a microphone.
yeah. This is crap.
This is not a good tune.
Sorry,
and
the
through.
treasures. Yeah.
And the vocal performance, what little is there because of the buried mix. I mean, there's some cool range jumps. I mean, he can jump an octave, get a little falsetto out.
Oh yeah. The
ahs are too loud. Like
the treasures as musicians sound like they know what they're doing.
can play, but
yeah.
I mean, if I had a hand in any of this back in the day, like I wouldn't let this leave the studio like that. You know what this sounds like? For anybody who like actually sits and plays around inside of, a DAW or any music recording software, this sounds like a reverb bus track of the song only.
Yeah.
It's so...
They forgot to turn on the main track.
That's right. It's so lackluster. It lacks any protein. And it's a robbery. It's so distracting you can't enjoy what's left of this cover song.
Yeah.
Sorry, the treasures. You ain't for me.
Bye-bye.
So last and certainly not least, but the irony of it all is we come to Veronica, which is just the lead singer of the Ronettes.
Yeah, Veronica, otherwise known as Ronnie
Ronnie.
Spector. And we definitely covered her a lot in the Ronettes. Fantastic singer. And she did some solo work. And when we look at this, she represents... Her name pops up 7 times here, but there's really only 2 songs that are truly Veronica songs. The rest, just by searching, she's in the Ronettes. So there's 2 songs here. So Young and Why Don't They Let Us Fall in Love?
Yep.
And if I look at her solo work, I don't know a lot of her solo work. She probably has more songs than this, but we talked about this in the Ronettes. She's also featured on Take Me Home Tonight with Eddie Money. She's the Be My Little Baby girl.
That's right. Just like Ronnie said.
Just like Ronnie said. Yeah. So we're kind of stuck, I think, selecting Why Don't They Let Us Fall in Love because So Young
is also on the Ronettes album we've covered.
Yeah. So let's do that, baby.
Yeah. So I like this tune. Mm-hmm. It's got the best sounding hand clap of the era. It's loud, but it's damn good. And in here, what you're seeing, and you didn't see this on the old Ronettes albums, they're doubling her vocal.
Yeah.
And she's doubling it perfectly. It's wild.
Yeah. Yeah. She's fantastic at that. And you get to hear her. There's still parts of this where like the background vocals are louder than her.
Just an absolute wall.
But this is, so the funny thing is when we were just talking about this and you put on So Young, which is we're too young to do stuff. But this song is Why Don't They Let Us Fall in Love? This is also We're Too Young to Go Steady. And I'm years older than this for sure, but there was a little bit of like go steady. We never said, will you go steady with me? I'm not that old, right? But there was a little bit of that like unrequited love, Romeo and Juliet thing that was still kind of in my youth that sort of bled almost into high school time. Was that a thing for you at all? Or were you guys well grounded and like we're independent people and we just, like.
No, I mean, because look, I'm in my early 40s. No, there was still the whole, you would have been gotten your ass kicked if you said the words go steady for sure.
Yeah.
But we did the dance. Are you my boyfriend? Are you my girlfriend? Like that. That was a thing.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody was asking the questions. Are we too young? I mean, I'm a '90s kid, so everything we did was, you won't tell me I'm too young to do anything. Give it to me as soon as you humanly can.
Yeah. No, we didn't. I'm Gen X, so we're double rockets to everybody all the time. But back on this song, I kind of like that. The sax section is the rhythm section for this song.
It's really good. I was going to mention them next.
Yeah.
And it's full.
Yeah.
I hate to pay him a compliment, but I like the mix on this one quite a bit with obviously the discrepancy of having the background vocalist be too loud. But in all fairness, the background vocalist is probably a wall of 8 Veronicas.
Right.
So
Yeah, they're not bad backgrounds. Just
they're just like car horns. That and the hand clap are too hot in the mix. But you get a nice chunky low end on this song and a bass finally that drives it. There's a nice groove. The tempo moves well. The phrasing is fun. It's a really it's a high note for me to go out on.
yeah, I agree.
So it begs the question. We already talked about how this compilation made a very early cut on the 2003 list. It's obviously fallen back considerably, probably to the point where it almost didn't even make the 2023 list. Mm-hmm. Where does it all sit for you?
I kind of feel like there's an alternate universe or an alternate list that could exist of music you should probably listen to if you haven't listened to it already. And because I think there are songs on here that if you haven't listened to this era of music, this is a really sweet era of music. Yeah, it's redundant and repetitive, but so is today's music.
Sure.
Right. So let's be fair. It's so much more wholesome and sweet than we are. So it maybe feels a little saccharine to us. But so I recommend listening to this style of music. Would I say, man, if you could only bring 500 albums to Mars with you on your trip to Mars, this is not one of the ones I put on that list.
Yeah, I'm with you only for two reasons here. The first being, I don't need 73 of anything to prove it's good, especially when it's this repetitive.
Yeah.
It's just, it's too much, guys. What the hell were you thinking? You made Dan and I's job really hard here, and you weren't considerate to our podcast.
Right. When you came up with this, 20 odd years before
you should have had the foresight that we were going to have to cover this one day. I'm done with that act. But I do stick by too much of the thing.
Yeah.
Just way too much. The second piece is we already saw the Ronettes a few albums ago, which is a huge chunk of this. We're probably going to see the Righteous Brothers. We're definitely going to see Ike and Tina.
Yep.
Those are the highlights. You could have made an 11-song compilation for the one-offs, and by the way, none of them would have made it through. Maybe
Right.
the Teddy Bears. And so, yeah, unfortunately, this does not score a place on the top 500 list of all time for me. Not that the artists aren't valuable. I see this as a cheap way of getting a lot for one spot onto the list.
That's it, because probably Darlene Love wouldn't have made it on her own, but she deserves to be listened to.
Agreed entirely. And I think it's nice to put, the checkmate stuff there, into the fold, into the conversation. This was just it's a burden. It's a burden. And also, at the end of the day, there was a smaller way you could say, yeah, we like what Phil Spector did for music.
Yeah.
I see your angle.
Yep.
You don't need 4 discs to prove it.
Yeah.
I'm tired. I'm fatigued.
Yeah. But if you listen to Christmas music, disc 4, that'll do you good.
Oh, it's my favorite of the 4 discs.
Yeah.
Well, that was Chewy. And we'd like to thank you for bearing with us. We have gotten some feedback recently, which has been really, really nice. We have our email that you can reach us at.
backwardsbeatspodcast@gmail.com.
And you can catch us on Instagram.
At Backwards Beats Podcast. We're also on Blue Sky.
Oh my gosh.
We're just Backwards Beats because it's not enough characters, but
Love it. We'll see you there if you want to. What do we have next week coming up?
so next week we have the Stooges with the album The Stooges.
All right. A total different turn. This should be an interesting one. Well, from Halethorpe, Maryland, we wish you the best. My name is Carl Carter Fansteel,
I'm Dan Woodard.
and we will hear you next week.
That was a show about the album Back to Monobike. Lots of artists on this album made some good stuff.
Backwards Speeds Podcast is a Tuna-Wood production recorded live at Thought Shack Studios in Halethorpe, Maryland.
If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You can find us at Backwards Speeds Podcast on most platforms.
Share the love, and we'll see you next week for another deep dive into the next album on Rolling Stone Magazine's Top 500 list. Until then, salt your melons.